Hi guys, I'm Vi. I am a painter and an art teacher living in New York, and I'm creating this video to share with you a little bit about my process and my creative journey and what inspired me to work with wax. So I've been using beeswax for almost a decade now, which kind of blows my mind, but I discovered this medium when I was at the School of Visual Arts working towards my thesis my senior year in 2011, and I was doing a lot of oil painting at the time, and I was doing a lot of drawing and watercolor and kind of just experimenting. And it wasn't really until I started learning about what encaustic work was and looking at artists that were using wax in their work that I really started to become interested in this medium. So I started buying bricks of beeswax and melting it down in a crock pot, which actually works really well. I still do it to this day. Adding different things like oil paint to change the color of the wax or gold pigments. And I just found that I was able to achieve these kind of insane textures through the use of the wax that just kept me really interested and curious. And I was looking at a lot of work by Gerhard Richter at the time, who is my favorite painter. And he works at such a large scale. His paintings just make such an impact when you view them in person. So I knew that I wanted to work on really big surfaces, especially with beeswax, which has such a rich texture. I felt that working at a larger scale just enabled me to kind of have a little bit more freedom in my work. So I started buying like 6-foot panels of wood at the hardware store, which I also still do. And kind of playing around with composition and technique. I put this series on hold for a little bit when I moved out to California, but I picked it up when I came back to New York last year because I have the space and the resources where I can really get this series started at the moment. And I've been creating a lot over the past few months, and I've kind of reconnected to this series that was so meaningful to me. And I'm constantly learning, constantly discovering. There's so much I probably have still yet to learn about using wax, but it's again a lot of trial and error, depending on the temperature of the wax and what materials I'm using can really influence and change the final result. I use a palette knife a lot. I kind of work back and forth, scraping layers and adding layers and things like that. But learning, how the wax reacts to different materials and different surfaces and techniques and things has been a really interesting discovery. I have days that I'm very frustrated and days that I'm just in a constant state of awe. But no matter what, I'm always just so excited to come back to the studio and make work. So, I can always kind of plan what colors I'm going to use and have an idea of what my composition is going to be. But again, I never really know how it's going to turn out. And I kind of love that about it. So my goal is to just keep producing and trying different things. And I can't wait to share with you. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about what kind of inspired me to work in this medium, and thank you for your support. And I hope you enjoy the work that I post in the coming months.
Once the wax is melted, I use a large spoon to pour it over the entire surface of my wood panel. Once I've poured the wax, I mix together a variety of oil paints to create a range of earth tones, which I then paint over the wax. I paint over the wax using a large brush, and I try to cover the entire surface of the panel. Using a rag, I begin to remove the oil paint from certain sections. The oil paint stains the wax a darker color and creates contrast. I leave parts of the painting darker and rub out other areas that I want to be lighter in color. I pour water over the bottom of the painting to create drips and vertical lines that add even more contrast to the piece. Since I use water-soluble oil, the water dissolves the oil in the sections which I pour water over. Then I use a palette knife to scrape back layers of wax. As I work, I consider movement, contrast, light, and of course, texture. I'm always taken back by the end result. I hope you enjoyed learning about my process. Here you can see the intricate textures and details that are created throughout this process. To view more of my work, find me on Instagram at ViFryPainting.